A woman with an acute dairy allergy died after eating a pret-a-manger wrap labelled as vegan, despite the fact that it contained traces of milk, coroner has ruled.
Celia Marsh died after eating the food while shopping with her family in Bath, and it was the coconut yoghurt dressing in the wrap which had been cross-contaminated with milk protein during the manufacturing process. This is what the coroner had said. Pam Caulfield has more.
Mum's death, like so many other allergy deaths, was entirely avoidable. As a family, we believe that action must be taken now by the food industry and the government. We need better testing, better labelling and better healthcare to prevent other families having to carry the grief that we will always hold. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Almost 5 years since Celia Marsh's death, finally her family have some answers. The dental nurse from Melksham was allergic to milk and the wrap she ate had been contaminated.
Mum was extremely cautious in all she ate, checking every label, often triple checking for dairy.
Mrs. Marsh was on a post-Christmas shopping trip with her husband and 3 of her daughters when they came to this pret-a-manger in Bath to buy a super veg rainbow flatbread. Her husband Andy said she started to feel funny after eating it, but later that afternoon she was struggling to breathe and collapsed in the street. Mrs. Marsh was taken to hospital. Less than 2 hours later, she died. It had been labelled vegan, but it wasn't. The court heard the dairy-free yoghurt inside the wrap contained an ingredient called HG1, which had been contaminated by milk on the production line. The coroner said the yoghurt maker, Planet Coconut, had documents which they didn't pass on to their customers, including Pret, about the risk of contamination. However, Planet Coconut say although they hadn't tested the ingredient themselves, they were assured it was dairy-free. The coroner called for compulsory testing of all products claiming to be dairy or allergen-free, which has been welcomed by the Marsh family.
There are many lessons to be learnt from our loss to prevent other families suffering as we do. The woeful lack of testing in the food supply chain for products that claim to be dairy-free or free from. The inconsistent use by food businesses of vague labelling such as may contain and produced in a factory where.
A pret-a-manger spokesperson said, "It goes without saying that if Pret had ever known that the yoghurt may have contained milk, we would never have used the ingredient." Celia Marsh's family now plan to take up civil action. Pam Caulfield, BBC News.
Well, let's talk about this more now with lawyer Michelle Victor, who represented Celia Marsh's family, and Tanya Ednan-Laperouse, whose daughter Natasha died after an allergic reaction to a sesame seed in a Pret baguette. Very good morning to both of you, and thank you so much for your time this morning. Michelle, if I could start with you, I can only imagine how difficult things have been for Celia's family, for the Marsh family. What comfort and what answers do you think they've got from what we've heard most recently?
It's been an incredibly long journey for the family. It's been almost 5 years since Celia's died, and they finally now have some understanding as to why she passed away. The main 4 aspects of what they were hoping for following the inquest was firstly that there's robust testing, verification within the food supply chain for food that is produced that is dairy-free and free from, and they want to ensure that those products mean exactly that. They wanted to achieve standardisation of wording for precautionary allergen labelling within the food supply chain to ensure there's no confusion. They want anaphylaxis registered as a notifiable disease, and also they want a well-resourced healthcare system to ensure that people with allergies have better management. Fortunately, the outcome yesterday, they have achieved all of those things and much more.
And Michelle, have they, to their own satisfaction, indeed to all of those people who are interested in this subject, have they answered satisfactorily, do you think, how it got to that point, going through the food chain, how it was that this mistake happened?
I think following the inquest yesterday and all of the evidence that came out, it was clear exactly what happened. Planet Coconut certainly had information within its possession in the lead up to Celia's death, which demonstrated that and confirmed that there was milk protein in the yoghurt. And had that information been passed on to Pret a Manger, Celia would be alive today.
Natasha Tanya, you know, Natasha's Research Foundation, of course, you've been working on these kind of clarifications, this clarity when it comes to the food chain for a very, very long time. What have you seen so far that has improved in the food industry, at least since Natasha's death?
There's definitely an awareness within the food industry about the dangers of food allergy, which certainly wasn't the case before Natasha died. And, you know, with the introduction of Natasha's Law last October, and that's for food that's pre-packed, made on the same site and sold, it has to carry full ingredient labelling. That's made a huge difference. So there's definitely been positive movement, but there's still a long way to go. And I think what this inquest has really shown is that you can make a claim and you can actually say that you are a manufacturer of a free-from product, free-from a certain allergen, and yet you don't actually even need to test. And there's no robust systems in place, no legislative systems in place, and it's just incomprehensible that you can make such a huge claim, but not be held to account.
When you've spoken about this, Tanya, you know, and said, why don't these manufacturers have to prove this, what have you been told?
They can do, most of them will do what is within the law, but the law's just not strong enough, and it doesn't support people with allergies well enough. You know, we do need a registry of anaphylaxis deaths and anaphylaxis near misses, because I think only when the true story of how serious this is and how commonplace it is will maybe the food industry step up.
Michelle, just remind us, because I know the devil's in the detail here, really, isn't it? I mean, what are the requirements of companies that they have? What is the minimum requirement they have to do?
So there is guidance issued by the Food and Drinks Federation about food business outlets wishing to make claims that are dairy-free and free-from and what they should do. It's an absolute claim, so it's imperative that if they make such claims, there should be no allergens within that product. Secondly, it is important that they carry out audits of all raw materials that they're provided, and also that the area in which the products are made are free from. And finally, that there should be robust testing. And what we've seen in Celia's case is that clearly we understand from Bethany Eaton at Planet Coconut that there was testing done on an annual basis, but there was no evidence to support or to reduce that.
Michelle Victor, thank you so much, who's partner at Lead Day, representing Celia Marsh's family, and Tanya Ednan Laperouse. Really appreciate your time this morning. Good to speak to you again. Thank you both.